Hello friends, from this video we'll start all about API development process. So the first API we'll create add employee API. Back to editor. So I will open API controller class. So app, HTTP, controllers, API, and here we have API controller class. So to work with add employee API, we need to work on this add employee method. And in this add employee method, we will accept our form data values. After getting all those values, we need to validate. First we need to check that if those keys, those values are accepted to insert or create any employee, or we have some error messages. If everything is okay, then we need to create an object of employee model class, and by the help of that object, we will create and save that employee data inside our table. So first thing first, we need to receive all the form data. So go inside this add employee method. We need to pass request object, and by the help of this request object we can access all the form data values. Now here next we need to add our validation. So by the help of this request object we need to call validate method. So here request, I will call validate method. Look at IntelliSense or the hint section. We need to pass our form validation rules inside this method. So I will pass an array. And if I go inside our database, click on employees table, go to structure. So from this structure, we can see that name field is not going to accept any null value. It means it is required. Email is also required. Phone number, it is accepting null values. It means this is an optional parameter. Age is also required and gender is also required. It means we have 4 required fields, that is name, email, age and gender. So I will go here inside this validate method. Let's add those columns, name, email, age and gender, and in front of all these columns let's add our form validation rule that is required. So I will copy and paste in front of all those columns. Next we need 2 more validation rules for email field that is required, and after required, the email value what user will pass inside this method should be a valid email address. So the next rule will be email, and also one more rule is that once we register any email address inside our employees table, that email address should be unique. So we need to add unique here, colon, and after that we need to pass the table name, and the table name we have called employees. It means email value should be unique inside employees table. So all we have done with the validation rules. So once we pass all validation rules, now next we need to save the employees data inside our table. So to interact with employees table, we need to create an instance of employee model class. So here let's say employee object equals to new and employee. Now here employee object, by the help of this object we can call all the columns what we have passed inside fillable array. So let's open all about our model class employee.php, and here we can see name, email. So all these columns we can call from this object. So name equals to request, and this is a request instance. By the help of that we can read our request parameters. So here name, this name value will come from form data. So in same pattern I will copy and paste 3 more times. This is for email. Next we'll have for the phone number, gender, and the final one we need for age value. So these are the columns like name, email, phone number, gender and age is coming from this fillable array. But here at right hand side, these are the columns or keys are coming from request body parameters or form data. So here name, after name we are receiving email value, phone number, gender and age value. So after getting all those values and assigning into all these fields, now I will call save method. So employee object, and I will call save method. So successfully up to this code we are validating our data after validation, we have created an instance of employee model class, and after instance, we have assigned all the values and saving inside our database. Now next we need to return a proper JSON response. So here return response helper function, and also I will call JSON method, and inside this method let's pass an array status equals to true and message. Let's say employee saved successfully. Now if we save all these changes, so let's test all about this addEmployee method with our addEmployee API route. So to test, I will open Postman. So here, this is a Postman tool. By the help of that, we'll do all about API testing. Let's first start all about development server. So I will go inside Project Terminal, PHP, Artisan Serve, pressing enter. It has now started our development server. To access application, I need to copy this URL, so copy link, back to Postman and paste it here. Now to call our addEmployee API, we need to use post request type. So we need to go inside this drop down and select post. Let's go to editor and I will open api.php. So routes, api.php. Now to call addEmployee method, we need to call addEmployee route. And one more thing, also we need to add API in front of this route. So I will go here, let's first copy add-employee, back to Postman, /API, and here we have add-employee. And after this API URL, we need to go inside headers. I will add a header here, and that is accept, go inside value, and it will be application JSON. So we need to pass one header, that is accept, and application JSON. If you want to pass the body parameters in format of JSON like JSON, so we need to add one more header, and that will be content type equals to application JSON. But for this API development, for this first phase of API development, we are not going to use any JSON format. Instead, we'll pass all the form data by using this first value called form data. So instead of passing JSON format data from this raw tab, I will use form data. So here I will go and uncheck that, go inside body, and inside form data, we need to pass our values. So let's say that without any value, if I click on send button, let's see what happens. Now we can see that validation error messages. The name field is required. Then means here we have a message called name field is required, and inside this errors list, name field is required, email field is required, age field is required, and the gender field is required. These all validation messages are coming from this validate method, and system automatically handles all about these validation rules. Now in next, if we go and pass some value here, that is name, and here I will pass the first employee name. Inside email, let's pass a value here, and as you know that this email address is not a valid email value, so if I click on send button, now we can see another error of email, that is the email field must be a valid email address. So successfully, this is the second rule what we have passed in front of this email field. So let's pass all the valid values for all the valid fields. So email rakesh@gmail.com. Next we need phone number, so phone_number. I will pass some dummy value. Next we have gender. Let's pass a value, and here age equals to 30. So successfully, now we have passed all the valid data and passing to this addEmployee route. So this will hit addEmployee method. After validation pass, it will go and create an instance of that, assign all those values inside these keys and save into our table, and hopefully we'll see this message, that is employee saved successfully. Let's go and click on send button. Now we can see that employee saved. Back to database, go to employees table, click on browse. Now we can see that our first employee now created. Now let's see another way to pass our API data. So back to Postman. So in this case we are using form data option. Now let's select raw here, go inside this drop down, select application JSON, and one more header we need to add here. So go to headers and select enable content type application JSON. It means we are telling that we are going to pass our data into JSON format to this API. So go to body, select this raw application JSON. Now we need to create a JSON object, and in this object we need to pass our properties in terms of key value pairs. So here the first property we have called name, and also after passing this single key, if I press send button, then we can see all the validation error messages. So the working principle behind these options will be same. So let's pass valid details, email, phone number, gender. Next we have age. So successfully we are passing all the valid data to this API, but this time we are passing into JSON format. So let's go and click on send button. Employee saved successfully. Go and reload. Now we can see that our second employee now created. So successfully, this is all about add employee API. In our coming video, we'll see our more development concept. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.